For people that don't know what it's like on the other side, that are currently really depressed and struggling, can you guys tell them, why does fitness work?
I mean, anytime you're feeling a depressive state, for advice to anyone would be get in nature, move your body, check what your diet is. If you're not eating right and nourishing your body how you need to, be able to meditate, sit in silence with yourself, connect with self. I think all of those are really important things to get off that checklist.
Welcome to Live from San Quarantine. We have these two amazing women I was fortunate enough to meet and become friends with. They established an amazing fitness, I would call it a phenomenon, an amazing culture of amazing women called Tone It Up. I'm so happy to see you. How are you guys doing? How's quarantine going?
Yeah, well,
it's going. I think in the beginning, it was great. And I was like, as an introverted person, it's like, this is awesome. But then after weeks, I was like, nope, I'm a social creature. I need to be out there. And, it's like everyone, we're all going through these ups and downs and ebbs and flows. And, work is adjusting and really busy, which is great. We're connecting with our community more, which is really nice. And just kind of all walking each other through it.
Yeah. And how about you, Katrina? How's it going? I know you have a little one at home.
Yeah, I feel like everyone's experience is so unique and challenging in their own way. And so it's challenging for a lot of people that don't have work. So I'm grateful that we have work. It's challenging for people that are isolated by themselves. And then it's challenging for couples in quarantine. And then all the parents out there, I feel like I haven't seen Brian, my husband, this whole time, because we're taking turns and we're doing everything possible to make sure that we can be productive and we can clean and we can take care of our daughter. And so it's very unique, everyone's experience, and we have our moments for sure. I cried probably a whole week straight because I felt like I couldn't do everything.
Yeah.
But productivity is out the window, and that's okay right now. And no matter what, at the end of the day, do what you can with the time that you have, and don't forget to tell the person that you're in the house with that you love them and you appreciate them, and don't forget to FaceTime and check in with your strong friends.
Yeah, it's really true. It's made me think a lot about, we've been a connected society for so long with the internet, but it's making me rethink what connection is and the quality of that connection, and how is that connection actually feeding us, and how do we manage those connections? I have a son too that, your son, everybody's homeschooling. I can't imagine having multiple kids. It would be unreal. Yeah. But I'm kind of just telling everybody, like, who cares if we get it all done? It's like our kids are going to get into college. It's kind of like when potty training happened, they're going to get potty trained. It's going to work out. It just might not be this second. Yeah. And I feel like I'm having to do that, just kind of wire what I think success or doing things is, or what an accomplishment is during a day, so that I can stay sane and really do this. So you guys are both juggling your relationships, your personal lives with your business. I just want to touch, I know you don't have a ton of time, but I want to touch on your business, because I'm just so proud of you guys. I don't know why I feel so proud of you, but I just feel so proud of you and what you've built, and getting to know what amazing humans you both are. The fact that you have this community, it's almost like it is about working out, and it's an amazing app, but the community is almost what it's most about. You guys just happen to work out. I've always thought that about my music. It's like music's the soundtrack to this community that I love. And we just happen to have songs as a soundtrack to it. That's how I feel about you guys. And I know there's a lot of people right now that are out of jobs. They're really scared, or maybe they hate their jobs, but they feel more like they have to keep that job, even if it's toxic for them. You guys started your own business, and you didn't just do it the normal way. We talked about this at our wellness festival in Ohio, that you guys didn't do a business plan and all the things that you're supposed to do, but you followed your gut and your intuition. Do you have any advice that could help people maybe get a start? Like, maybe this is the time that they say, maybe I should take this risk. Maybe I should follow my passion.
Yeah, so we started Tone It Up 11 years ago, completely unconventional way. Again, no business plan to this day, but we always, we always go back to our why. And as long as we're following that why and that purpose and that passion and why we started, we move forward. And yeah, it was really all about community. For us, fitness saved our lives, changed our lives in such a positive way. Coming out of, which we'll talk later about, my dark period, and helped Kat through her being teased as an overweight child. And we found fitness that not necessarily the physical thing, but like the mental part of it, how you just feel so different with those endorphins that fitness can bring you. And we just wanted to share that message with women, and that you can have fun and be healthy and enjoy, and you don't have to live this like really strict life. And, you know, fitness, Kat and I met through fitness, and now millions of women across the world are meeting through our Tone It Up community. And that's really what it's about, is community and improving people's lives.
Katrina, do you have advice for people of like, if they have a passion, what do you feel like the first steps are for them right now if they're really contemplating that?
Kind of like us, we go, if you have a passion, stick with it and go for it. Have the confidence. A lot of people told me and Kat that the fitness industry was oversaturated. Don't do it. And it's not true. And even to this day, if you wanted to have a business in fitness or wellness, the wellness space, look at all the people in the world who need us. They need more wellness and leaders in that space, whether it's in meditation or fitness or anything for mental health, because there's a lot of people still suffering. So it's not saturated.
Yeah, there's room for everyone and everyone's passion. And as long as you have a mission to help people and authenticity, there's so much room for that and helping everybody.
What do you think, Katrina, the first steps are? Like if somebody had their passion and they know they want to help people, is there a first step? Like in music, I kind of know what that would be, but I don't know about starting an online community or an app. Is there kind of a first couple steps of like, you want to do these 3 things?
I think self-discovery and not being afraid to try a lot of things too. A lot of times when we think about what we want to do, someone says, stay in your lane or stick with one niche. And what that does is that creates limited beliefs too. And so we go with the easy thing, because that thing that we really want to do might be, everyone says, oh, you're going to do that? I didn't picture you doing that. And then all that self-doubt and those limited beliefs on the outside too start coming in. And so I think exploring a lot of different things, if you want to do something, try it out and ask support from somebody. What has really helped myself and Karena grow and have this, like, I would call it like staying power together, is we always cheered each other on and had these moments of like this, and we go like, we pull each other up. And that's what you need in your life, is that you need to surround people in your life where you say, I'm going to share something with you that I want to do. And I know it sounds like, oh my gosh, but I need your support 100% all the time. And what I'm about to share with you, I'm going to go on this journey, and I'd love for you to encourage me at all times. Even when I have that doubt, I'd love for you to be my person. And so having somebody in your life, or your family or your spouse or your partner be that person for you is really important, because sometimes those people closest to you are like, what are you doing? You know, when are you going to get a job? Or are you sure you want to do this? And those voices that we listen to, we trust and we love. And so I think in that very beginning stage, it's exploring things that you love, trying a lot of things, and just knowing if you have this passion that you really want to do, there are so many people out there that need you and that will believe in your message. And I would say, go for it. Start putting it on paper. Just kind of throw stuff at the wall and see what happens. And through the things that we've tried, Karena and I have tried so many things that, you know, didn't work. And so we've explored all areas of a lifestyle, even outside of like just fitness. And it always comes back to our roots. And I think that's really important too, that you realize what your niche is later. Don't try to just stick to one thing now. You'll figure it out and go there.
And also, you know, as Kat mentioned, having your people, and Kat and I are our people. So that really helped us encourage each other and lift us up throughout the journey, and also stick with it. We went for broke for 3 years, quit our day job, quote unquote, and just focused on our passion and our purpose and sharing the community. We just believed in it. And it takes time. A lot of, you know, people come and they're like, wow, you're overnight sensation. Like, no, even prior to starting Tone It Up, we were each in the fitness industry, but 5 years prior to that. Just doing our thing.
Yeah. Katrina, I was curious, you know, we've talked a lot about motherhood when we've had the chance to speak on different panels when we were together in Ohio. And the concept of perfectionism, I don't know if that's the word we used then, but it's a word I really struggled with when I became a mom. You know, I think being a type A person helped me as a mom, as a professional, right? Because I'm kind of a go-getter and super detail oriented. And when I had a baby, it was terrifying because there's no ability to be perfect. I've never done it before. And it feels like the single most important thing that we have. How has that been for you? I don't even know if you're a perfectionist, but I just know every mom feels this, like, I have to do it perfectly. We have so much pressure on ourselves. And I think about all the moms in quarantine with that voice running in our head. How has that journey been for you? Is that something you relate to? Do you have any advice for other moms of how to, and I tell myself all the time, I'm like, just let it go, Jewel. And I know I should, but I still get so worked up over it.
I'm going through that right now. And so I think it will always be there. I'm totally a perfectionist. And especially with work, it definitely helped because whether it was our branding or just staying up through the night until it's perfect, I never wanted to release anything unless it felt so right for us. And so that really helped. When you're a mom, you can't do that. You need sleep. I didn't need sleep before I became a mom. I actually, I don't think that I slept for the first decade of Tone It Up. And so I would fall asleep with the laptop in between me and Brian. So now we're learning to also connect as well. But I think surrendering. So the biggest thing that I realized before I even had Bella was surrendering to body changes. Mm-hmm. And so for the mental health of all the women that follow us, I was thinking, you know, everyone talks about the snap back after baby, or I got my body back, and it was all going backwards. And so as soon as I realized that everyone was telling me, I can't wait to see your snap back or you get your body back, I realized that if that doesn't happen for me, which most likely it won't, because I really wanted to focus on other things as soon as I had her, not just losing weight, but really, you know, this life change and everything. I thought, I don't want to focus on going backwards. I want the snap forward. I want to go forward in this new body and this new change and embrace that. And so I really put that out there. And I think that helped me so much personally to be able to put that message out there, because that's what I also needed to hear. I needed to hear that it's okay to look 3 months pregnant, 6 months post-baby. And that's beautiful, because what your body was able to do is incredible. And so every day, that same mentality I put into being a mom and self-forgiveness, and knowing even right now, she's 18 months, she's learning so much and she's picking up on everything. And I'll be on Zoom calls. The other day I was on a Zoom call with like literally 12 people, and she just came up right on the screen and was like putting her head here and making all these noises. And, you know, everyone laughed, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. But afterward I had to think, like, that's okay. We're all doing this together, and that she's going to have moments where she's seeing me work. And so the moments that I can't be teaching her things, she's going to be learning work ethic. And when I'm with her, and I'm present, and I love her, and she has all of me. And so I think that that's a big thing that we need to learn, is where when we're at work, we'll have that guilt, oh, I should be with my kids. And when we're with our kids, we have that guilt, I should be working, making sure that you can be all in wherever you are. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect at that, and that's okay. I think that reminding yourself constantly of that. So when you're working, you're like, I should be doing this with my kids, you know, say, I'm going to do this with my kids. I'm going to focus here, and then I'm going to switch gears. So long answer short, it'd probably be an entire book, but it's like a journey of self-forgiveness, love, and embracing things, and just surrendering to this new chapter in your life. You're not who you were before, so there's no need for a snap back. You're going to snap forward. Yeah,
I like the idea of snapping forward. With perfection, I've actually been writing a book, and a lot of the books about emotional, I call it alchemy or transmutation. How do we take a feeling we're drowning in? How do we dedicate it and just see it as a resource? It's just a source of energy. And how can I transmute it into something that works for me instead of something that just overwhelms me? And so with perfectionism, it's been a big one for me. Like I get through levels of perfectionism and then I just see a whole new level. I'm like, wow, this is an onion for me. It's a really deeply ingrained thing for me because of a couple reasons. I think our self-worth, for me in my childhood, my self-worth really became at a young age that I was capable of doing things. It made me feel good about myself, and I'm capable of doing this and that feels good. And somehow as perfectionism creeped in, if I wasn't good at something, it affected my self-worth. They got mixed up. My self-worth wasn't just intrinsic, and if your self-worth is tied up to anything outside of you, you're in trouble because you're going to be vulnerable to being taken away at any moment, And so for me, really lately, I've been working on saying I sacrifice my attachment to perfectionism and I dedicate it to compassion. Because that's where I've been the weakest. I'm not compassionate with myself at all. And perfectionism really stems from this encumbered form of compassion. And so I've had to really bring it into my practice every day and sometimes just multiple times throughout the day of I'm dedicating my attachment to perfectionism to compassion. I'm going to feel compassion now for myself. And it's been amazing. It really has lessened the charge on it. And I really relate with the becoming a mom and working too, because I felt guilty all the time. If I was with my work, I felt like crap because I wasn't with my son. When I was with my son, I felt like crap because I wasn't doing what I said I would do with my job. And I love my job. I really love it. It does fill me up. And so I realized how often we take something that we love and then we pit it against each other. What a nasty habit. I don't know how I got that. But I take one thing I love, I split it in two, and then it's I pit them against each other. So I've really been focusing on realizing it's all love. A feeling of love creates an experience of love, and love is created. And I've had to remake it, take it out of duality and into a singular holistic model of when I'm with my work, it's a dedication of love. And that means my whole life will be nourished. Why did I think it would rob my son? That's so weird how these thoughts get in us. And when I'm with my son, it's I have to say this mantra of, I dedicate love and it will be an experience of love and it will nourish my whole life. That lie of not enough and robbing this to take it from that is such a weird, and it's just a made up reality. I can't believe it. It's a wild thing when you start realizing how much of your psyche invisibly got built while I wasn't watching. I don't know when I did that and when I built that, but I have to be super conscious about how I unbuild it.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much.
I know I don't have you for very long. Oh, I have you a little longer. How long do I have you again?
I don't even know. Until nap time is over.
It's amazing. So Karena, I got to know your story a little bit at the Wellness Festival. I'd love for people to hear. We had a couple of mental health experts on, and we have Dr. Judson Brewer coming up in a bit. Oh, I just got a question. This is such a lo-fi show. This is how I get my questions, people. Before I move on to you, Karena, really quick, I'll have you guys ask this. Just to be happy, damn it, asked to both of you, as entrepreneurs, how did your own self-doubt play a role in growing your business and ideas, and how did you overcome that?
How did our own self-doubt affect growing our business?
Yeah. I think you guys had mentioned that, you doubted yourselves, but you helped pick each other up. And
yeah,
how did you overcome that and kind of find your way?
I feel like Kat and I have always had this powerful feeling within us that I don't necessarily, there's certain parts of our business that we doubted and we questioned, and maybe it was the wrong decision to do something in particular in a business decision. But when it came to Tone It Up, I think the power of two, and because we're very self-aware and we had such a passion, I wouldn't say that starting Tone It Up, sorry, a bird just flew at my window.
My cat was just doing all sorts of weird things.
Powdering my face. Look, we all got things going on. I had to shut my drawer a second ago. I have Clorox wipes right here.
Fighting with the dog. They're doing all this weird stuff.
I was going to put these on the ground. So sorry, Karena.
We had this confidence because we truly, truly believed it. And we are very, I would say, self-aware people that when it was the decision to start Tone It Up didn't have self-doubt, but sometimes maybe decisions along the way we questioned, but then we would always talk ourselves through it. And then if it was a bad decision, I think that's one of the greatest things as we've learned. If we got told no, or we made a wrong decision or something didn't work out, it's like, okay, let's not dwell on that. Let's not like have that eat us up inside, and leading to self-doubt to keep pushing forward. Yeah. We recognized it and we keep snapping forward.
Yeah. It's so funny because when I think about the things that we did and right or wrong or whatever it was, I love how Karena always phrases it as like a learning lesson and we're going to move forward. The self-doubt, we started confident. We're like, we're going to do this. Nothing's going to stop us. And what happens is, and if you have that confidence in the beginning, when you're going to start something, a lot of that self-doubt actually comes from the outside. And these people will come in, maybe you hire them to help you, or you partner with people, or you're growing and you're collaborating, or you're doing all these things, you know, and you end up you can't do everything when you start a business. And so where Karena was doing our accounting and I was doing our HTML, neither of us should be doing those things. But the self-doubt you start questioning yourself when other people come in and question your goal and your message and what you want to do. And so we've experienced so much of that where we kind of question what our capabilities are as women, as co-CEOs, as how we started, our ability to run our business, to run a team, our ability to serve our community, what was innate in us and what our intuition told us. That doubt came from the outside. And so where we were two very confident, unstoppable girls, we've been stopped, and we did not stop ourselves. It was the outside. And so I think getting past that, and if anyone listening is going through something like that, just know that always stick to your intuition and what feels right. If it doesn't feel right, you will always be able to come back to it, and you can. And just when you think that you have nothing left in you to push and fight through to make your dream happen, it will happen. And different guardian angels will come into your life and guide you when certain things go off track. But like, Karena and I have been through so much to make sure that we can continue serving our community, the most beautiful place for them to feel safe, healthy, and loved, and have this healthy lifestyle. And so we hope to continue that. But yeah, that self-doubt that's where Karena and I are like, we're pulling each other up. And I can see how it's difficult for a singular entrepreneur, because being an entrepreneur is very lonely. And a lot of people talk about that. If you don't have someone else to bounce ideas off of, or when other people are putting that doubt on you as a singular entrepreneur, it's very difficult. And that's why when I said in the beginning to kind of find someone to be your person, whether that's your business partner like Karena, we were like, do you want to do this together? Or it's your significant other or someone in your life that you trust. So that way, when you have those moments of that outside self-doubt coming in, or that doubt coming in that causes self-doubt, you can go to that person and say, something doesn't feel right. Can you help me with this? And you'll be able to push through.
Somebody just requested a song, but I thought it might be apropos, and I thought I would do it really quick. We're talking about anxiety, and then we're going to get more into that and into mindfulness. One thing I learned is that there are only, they're wanting life in common, but I want to do this song. Take it to me to take requests and then not really take them. I guess I could do it. I'll do their request. This is actually really apropos for you guys now that I think about it. Whoever requested this was actually a lot smarter than me. This song is about I was really trying to hold this vision and this dream. Everybody was telling me it wasn't possible. And the kind of person we hope we grow into. I was thinking a lot about it and trying to have the courage to live a life that wasn't common, to try and not just do what everybody else was doing, to try and not just be accepted by everybody, but to really follow my heart. And so I wrote this song actually I think I was 19 or 20 when I wrote this, as sort of like a promise to myself that I would try and live this song, if you will. Don't worry, mother, 'cause it'll be alright. Don't worry, sister, say your prayers and sleep tight, and it'll be fine. Lover of mine, it'll be just fine if we lend our voices only to sounds of freedom. No longer lend your strength to that which you wish to be free from. Fill your lives with love and bravery, and you shall lead a life uncommon. I've heard your anguish. You know, I've heard all of your hearts cry out. I know that you're tired, I know that you're weary, but do not let me hear that you are worn out. Set down your chains till only faith remains. Set down your chains and lend your voices only. Never, 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 no. I mean, not one time. Do not let me hear you lend your strength to that which you wish to be free from. Fill your lives with love and bravery, you shall lead life uncommon. Now there are plenty of people all around the world, and everybody's praying for peace. But if praying were enough, oh, you know, it would have come to be. Oh, never, 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 never let your words enslave no one, and the heavens will hush themselves to hear our voices ring out clear. Oh, yeah, the sound of freedom, sounds of freedom. Come on, you unbeliever, move out of the way, 'cause I'm telling ya, there is a new army coming, and we are that new army coming. Oh, you know that we are, and you know that we are, and you know that we are. With faith, you know, to live we gotta give to live. And lend our voices only. Never know, never know, never know. Do not lend your voice to that which you wish to be free from. Fill your lives with love and bravery, you shall lead a life uncommon. For people that don't know what it's like on the other side, that are currently really depressed and struggling, can you guys tell them, why does fitness work?
Yeah, first of all, there's so many different levels of depression, and so fitness is not the all savior for everyone. But because it boosts your endorphins, your serotonin, it brings you happiness, getting out in nature. I mean, anytime you're feeling a depressive state, for advice to anyone would be get in nature, move your body, check what your diet is. if you're not eating right and nourishing your body how you need to, be able to meditate, sit in silence with yourself, connect with self. I think all of those are really important things to get off that checklist.
I also think part of Tone It Up, aside from fitness especially, and this is probably right for you too, through music and through community, finding a community that is like-minded to you really helps. So how you're feeling, so you can share how you're feeling. It gives you a sense of connection and purpose, and something that you're part of something that's greater than you, that can also come back and give you the love that you need. And so I think community is really important for everyone that feels a little isolated right now. And while everyone is going through all the different emotions that we can't control right now, reaching out and finding community right now is so important. And through, whether that's working out or music or however, if you can just talk to this group that is going through the same thing as you, it's so important.
Yeah. Tribe. Everybody's really looking for tribe. And right now we really are, but we always have been. The hard thing is when you're in a tribe that's dysfunctional, but they became your family, right? They loved you when you were down, and you might be a dysfunctional little tribe. And then if you start to grow, this happened to me in Alaska. I lived in the projects, and a lot of my friends sold dime bags and were drug dealers, but we didn't have any family. We were each other's family. When I started learning and growing, and I started kind of realizing I wanted something more, and my friends didn't, there was so much guilt for me. And I didn't know how to find another tribe. Now I think it's probably easier with the internet, but I bet it's still very daunting. For anybody watching, the tribe, the Tone It Up tribe is amazing. The community of the women. You guys carried us our first year in Ohio. I mean, the only reason anybody showed up was because thank God everybody's showing up with their mats. I'm like, who are these beautiful people showing up? And thank you. It was you guys. I mean, it was amazing to see the beautiful, strong community you have and how they're lifting each other up. My fan base is like that. One of my fans lost her partner to cancer, and my fans secretly made a month-long mourning calendar, grieving calendar. And they did it secretly, and they showed up, and a fan, one of the other, they call themselves Everyday Angels, they never let her be alone for an entire month. Like, they lived with her, they cooked for her, they supported her for that month, and they flew in from all over the world and took times off their jobs. Like, so if anybody's looking for community, your guys' Tone It Up community is extraordinary. It's one of the best aspects. I love your fitness, of course, it's amazing, but the community is just so special. And then the EDAs, I have a website called Never Broken. If people are just looking for community or tribe or have questions, there's every age and every demographic in my jewelneverbroken.com website. And then here, just for anybody watching, this Twitch TV channel, Inspire House, has my foundation youth pretty much 24/7. They're doing meditation, yoga, they answer questions. They're actually helping mentor people that are in hospitals with COVID right now. So if you're watching, those at least are 3 communities to start with.
Yeah, I love what you guys are doing, and everybody's quarantined together, and I see it on social media going and meditating together with all your kids. So it's beautiful. And even, community, our Tone It Up community too, I want to mention, has helped me grow and me share even my story, which, because no one talked about mental health 10 years ago, and helped me start talking about it more. And then I have so many community members that come to me personally sharing their stories. And so we're all really helping each other heal and work through it. And it's really beautiful.
My friend, Dr. Judson Brewer, is on. He's an amazing psychiatrist and also a neuroscientist, and wrote a great book called The Craving Mind. Hi, Judson. How are you? I see you there.
Hey.
Nice to see you.
Good to see you.
It's been a while, since Boston, I think.
Yeah.
I just thought it'd be fun to have all 3 of us here for about 10 minutes while we still have the blessing of Karena here. I don't know if you got to hear, but Karena has an amazing story of really healing and overcoming. We don't often get to see what it's like on the other side of suicidal ideation, or on the other side of really rewiring our brain. And how do you do that, especially with someone like Karena, who, my mom was like this. My mom was a fantastic, I don't know if brainwashing is the right word, but I had a lot of false beliefs that were completely fictitious, and I didn't know I was fed them. from such a young age, I thought it was reality. And so it was a very disorienting, is an understatement, very disorienting thing to try and go, which thoughts are real and which thoughts aren't. But it's a great setup to mindfulness, because not every thought and feeling is a fact. And that's one of the foundational principles of mindfulness. And so even if you weren't like Karena and I, which is a blessing, not every thought and feeling you have is a fact. And sometimes, oddly, I don't know if you would agree with this, Karena, but I sometimes think that having to come such a far distance, I had to get better. I don't know if you felt that way, but I had to get better. I knew it. I didn't have the luxury of not doing self-help work. Yeah, some people that don't have that just desire and real need, they don't necessarily know. They might be slower to come to. Not every thought and feeling is a fact. How was it for you starting to rework those brain patterns? How was it for you to start going, what are my thoughts? What are my beliefs? Not the ones that I was raised with.
Well, I would say it takes many, many years, probably another decade, to realize, like, me too. I would talk to my sister, and we still to this day have memories of like, oh wait, that wasn't real. Like, it's that confusion, and we still have it. And, you know, I would be triggered a lot and have PTSD. So it was a lot of therapy work, EMDR, among other things, to retrain my thoughts and go from that self-doubt to that self-awareness and being okay with everything that happened and the trauma, and shifting my thoughts to, I'm actually, to this day, I'm grateful for all of it. And you probably maybe feel the same way, that it got me where I am today in a life that is truly full of joy. And I even tell my mom, you know, I was like, because she gets so upset that she was never around. And I said, Mom, you raised me by not raising me. I do not regret a thing. So yeah, it's a lot of mental work, I find that sitting in silence and stillness, you just learn so much. And even to this day, sometimes if I feel like there's too much noise within or around the world, I'll take a day of silence and just disconnect. But
yeah. Something that really worked for me was, I had this, there was a Joseph Campbell allegory, you might know it, Judson, the golden statue. And they covered a golden statue with mud when a warring village came, and they forgot it was gold. And decades later it rained and they realized the statue was made of gold. And when I went through this, finally realizing my mother was who she was and that my life was what it was, and catching up, I felt so broken. And then I thought of this allegory of the golden statue, and I was like, what if I'm not broken? What if I just have to get rid of the thoughts that aren't mine? And that's where sitting still becomes your map. No therapist almost can give it to you. I don't want to speak, you know, I'm all for therapy. But what I was able to do by sitting still, and I really started in something, I got asked a lot about anxiety, and so I want to make sure we touch on that today, Judson. But I started looking at my anxiety as a friend, as an ally, because I realized whenever I was anxious, it was my body's way of talking to me, of saying, something you're doing right now is not in your authentic nature. Something you're doing right now does not agree with you. It's almost like if you eat and you get food sick. My anxiety started to become this amazing clue. And instead of fearing my anxiety and trying not to feel it and numb it, I started to get very curious and welcome my anxiety and go, what are you trying to tell me? What was I just thinking? What was I just feeling? What was I just doing? Or what was I just eating? And I had to, it had to be very diligent about it, but I started to really feel grateful for my anxiety, because it was my best alarm system. I spent so long not paying attention to it. I don't know if you can relate to that at all, but sitting still, I started to be like, oh, I needed to sit still. My anxiety's telling me to sit still and figure things out and come into myself.
That is really true. I like that. Your anxiety is telling you. If I think of any time that I've had an anxiety attack, or mornings that I wake up feeling anxious, it's important to actually address where those emotions are coming from. And I can think of any major panic attacks that I was having, and I know exactly why.
Yeah. Well, Karena, thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. I'm so glad to see your face. And everybody, make sure you check out the Tone It Up app. It's incredible. And follow these gals on their socials.
All right. Well, thank you. So good to see you.
Thank you so much. Nice to see you. Judson, so nice to have you.
Thanks for having me.
For people that aren't familiar with you, do you mind telling them, I have your credentials written down, but I can't find them on the top of my thing, so I'm not really a professional interviewer. So
Good. It's better that way. Authenticity is so much better than anything else. So I'm an addiction psychiatrist and neuroscientist. I specialize in anxiety and habit change. I'm the director of research and innovation at Brown University's Mindfulness Center. Founded a company called Mind Sciences that makes apps for habit change. You know, we've got one for smoking called Craving to Quit, one for emotional and overeating called Eat Right Now, and one for anxiety called Unwinding Anxiety. So, yeah.
One of the things I learned when I was homeless, I was having panic attacks. They started for me probably when I was 16, and I didn't know what they were. I'd never heard of them. And never had a word for it, probably until my 20s. They started coming back when I was homeless and was getting agoraphobic. And so I was really desperate to find ways to get myself out of them. I never did drugs, thankfully. And one thing I realized was I either felt like this or I felt like this. And that's the way I talked about it. Now there's language for dilated and contracted. But I just knew that when I felt calm and happy, I felt like this. And when I felt anxious, I felt like this, and I needed to go from this to this. So I kept trying to find ways, and I stumbled on gratitude. I realized that every thought, feeling, or action led me to one of these two states, and I started creating these really long lists. It was like, I guess all I had. I didn't have any resources, so I'd start saying, this feeling makes me do this. This feeling makes me do this. And so I remember the very first time I started to be able to head off a panic attack or a highly anxious state was on a street corner one day, and there was a palm tree, and I felt the sunlight coming through the palm tree, and I got just profoundly grateful for it. Even though I didn't have anything else, I was able to get my entire system, and that was the important thing, was making my whole system feel it, not just like a mental state of gratitude, but like a physical state of gratitude. And lo and behold, it worked. And I remember just being like, thank God. Like, you know, I was just so desperate to find something. And I recently just wrote this song about gratitude, and it just got requested, so I'm going to sing it really quick.
Perfect.
But it'll hopefully lead us right into habit loops and dilated versus contracted, and really helping some people solve for anxiety. But this is called Grateful. It was inspired by anxiety. When everything's wrong, when I can't find my song, when darkness is all I see, oh, there is a remedy. It's all the little things that make the world go round. It's all the little things that are most powerful. There's no politician, no sky to die. No one can take the love from my heart, and the sun gonna shine in this heart of mine. The sun gonna shine in this heart of mine. The sun gonna show it's true, 'cause I can always be grateful. And the loudest sound is your own life crashing down. And when your friends they don't come around, there's one true thing I found. It's all the little things, the bells that ring, the green grass and the stars that sing. I'm gonna choose the bright side to see, and no one can take that from me, 'cause the sun gonna shine in this heart of mine. The sun gonna shine in this heart of mine. The sun gonna show it's true, 'cause I can always be I'm singing on now. I'm singing on, I'm singing on, singing on, 'cause the sun gonna shine in this heart of mine. The sun gonna shine in this heart of mine. The sun gonna show it's true. 'Cause I can always be grateful. That one's called Gratitude. It's a brand new song that just came out. Well, I was singing it. I was remembering you coming to Boston. How long ago did we meet? Do you remember the first time you met? I'm trying to remember when the first time was.
Was this stop by, you were doing a Christmas concert or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a couple of years ago. Yeah. Probably actually closer to 4 or 5 years ago now. It's been a while.
Probably. Yeah. You were kind enough to help me with my Never Broken website. A lot of the exercises you were kind enough to sort of explain to people, a lot of the science of mindfulness, why mindfulness works. For people that don't know what mindfulness is, it's actually a question I get a lot. It's such a weird word. It's like this catch-all word. Be mindful, but you're not supposed to be in your mind, and it's kind of a confusing label, actually. So what is mindfulness in your definition?
Well, I'm glad you say that, because I've been moving away from using that term because it's very conceptual, like you're pointing out. And I like to just anchor in actual experience, like what's concrete, what do we all know? So, you're talking about these closed, contracted states versus open states. We all know those. Awareness is something we all know. We're either aware or we're not aware. So that's one component that's in mindfulness is are we aware or not? Are we lost in a thought stream, worrying about the future, regretting the past, whatever. But there's also this attitudinal quality that actually gets at this closed versus open state, where this attitude of curiosity, of just not saying, oh, I see that, I'm aware of it, but I don't like it, and pushing it away, or, oh, I see that and I like it, I'm trying to hold on to that. Neither of those are really the core qualities of mindfulness. I think of it as awareness, that we're just open to what is. We're curious about what is. So that attitudinal quality comes in as well with the awareness. So I think of it as awareness and this attitude of curiosity.
I define mindfulness as conscious presence. So that's what I've just been saying. I'm like, you're just being willing to be consciously present. And when you're consciously present, so for me, when I was stuck in these really bad anxiety nightmares, I realized fear and anxiety were like a thief, and it took the past and it projected it into the future. And it actually robbed me of my goal, which was showing up. I wanted to keep myself safe, right? That's why worry's there, supposedly. That's why anxiety is there, supposedly. But it robs you of the ability to do that job. And so it's a very frustrating prophecy of constant failure. I liken it to being on a bicycle and you don't want to hit the rock in the street. You stare at the rock and you hit it because it's all you're staring at. So our anxiety is like staring at the rock in the street. And so learning to be consciously present is just being able to notice a thought in real time and then just putting a gap before you act on it. And that little gap starts to be the really magical, I call it the chamber of change, which is so corny, but it's like this magical chamber of where you show up in that moment and you have all this neural wiring, all these behavioral things that are prompting us to behave how we've been programmed. But once you can create a little gap and a little awareness and you stop and pause, you can start to then bring new training in. You talk about habit loops in your book really beautifully and how it's based on the behavioral science that was pioneered in the 1800s. Would you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah.
Was it the 1800s that, what's that doctor's name in S? And he was an animal behavioral scientist.
Yeah, Ed Thorndike. And then in the 50s, B.F. Skinner, who a lot of people...
That's what I was thinking of. Okay, the 50s, the 1800s, just a little off. I'm a folk singer. What do you want? You get what you pay for.
Yeah. So basically, we learn through feedback, right? And so you're talking about feedback, anxiety giving you feedback, and you could learn from it. So that's basically how we learn. So for example, if it was actually set up to help us survive, and it only has 3 core elements, right? A trigger, a behavior, and a result. So if we see some food, we eat that food, that's the behavior. And then the result is our stomach sends this dopamine signal to our brain that says, remember what you ate and where you found it. So it's about helping us remember where food is and also where danger is, right? You see danger, you run away, and then you survive. There's the reward. And so it helps us, find nutrient and avoid danger. But that old part of the brain actually has a newer part of the brain kind of layered on top of it, literally called the neocortex, the new brain, which helps us survive in a different way, which is through thinking and planning. But that part of the brain needs information. So this is actually where anxiety comes in. It's a fascinating story. So this old survival brain is still at play, right? But we all have refrigerators, right? We don't really need to forage for food anymore. We know where the restaurants are, whatever. But our brains are still trying to plan for the future and say, well, let's use this really strong learning mechanism. So they try to plan, but we need accurate information to do that, especially now. There isn't a lot of accurate information out there, around, this whole pandemic and all this stuff. But it's not just the pandemic. I even think of this as BC, before coronavirus, mm-hmm. there was still anxiety. And it's just our minds kind of spinning out in these what if habit loops. So you're talking about taking the past and projecting to the future. That's actually what our brain does, is it takes past information and tries to assume what's going to happen or project, okay, based on what happened in the past, this is going to happen in the future. But we need something, similar in the past to be able to project that into the future. Actually, I wrote a New York Times article about this that kind of highlights where all these things have come together with the coronavirus, where, nobody's really lived in a pandemic like this before. 1918 was the last big one like this and all this. So our brains are going in hyperdrive and getting anxious because in these what if habit loops. And then you add to that social media, which is like, you can distance yourself from somebody to not catch a virus, but you can go on social media and somebody can sneeze on your brain from anywhere in the world. Right? So
you're talking about the contagious nature of fear and anxiety. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a scientific term for it called social contagion, how appropriate. So we can see how not having accurate information gets us to go online or call somebody or watch the news to try to get that information. That's just our brain trying to help us survive. But when we don't know how our minds work, we're just going to get sneezed on and catch that fear or that scarcity or whatever and freak out and then spread that to somebody else. So I think of these habit loops, and I wrote a lot about this in my book. If we can actually just understand that core concept really simply, that puts us in gives us a lot of power to be able to work with that, because we learn best through feedback, as humans. That's how we work.
Yeah. When I was homeless, I realized, I don't know why I had this epiphany, but my dad was an addict. And so I wanted to never do drugs and drink. But I realized I was addicted to things anyway. It just didn't happen to be drugs. I was addicted to shoplifting. I was addicted to anxiety, clearly addicted to anxiety. And then I had this weird epiphany of like, wait a minute, why am I able to be addicted to things? There must be a biological reason. There must be an evolutionary reason. I'm just getting addicted to the wrong things. Can I get addicted to better things? And so I didn't know the word habit loop, but I saw this, I called it a triad. But I didn't know the word trigger either. I think back then I just had a stimulus was what I said. Something stimulated me. I had a way of responding, and then I had a reward. I knew that word. And so I decided to try, and I couldn't change what was stimulating me. I couldn't change being homeless right away, but I could change this middle one. I was shoplifting to give myself a sense of control. And I realized, all right, I'm going to just do an experiment and see if I can get myself addicted to something else. And I'm going to focus on this middle one really, really hard. And because I wrote poetry. I wasn't known for being a writer. I was just like a hobbyist that had a journal. So I just dedicated myself to writing in my journal anytime I wanted to steal. And I stole a lot. So I started writing a lot. Like, it was very proportionate. And I got no reward at first. It was just dragging myself to do it. I just forced myself to do it. It was really a willful act. Yeah. But I was curious. So that was a little rewarding maybe. But with time, I noticed it became rewarding. It was almost like, and I'm curious about what is the science behind this. It wasn't rewarding at first, but after a while, it was like, I imagined it like my brain became sensitive. Like, I just had to like tell my brain, hey, get sensitive to this as a reward. And after a while it did. And I never thought I'd become a career. That was a really wild side effect of my own little weird science experiment.
Yeah, so this is great. And this is why I love to geek out with you about stuff like this. This is so fun. So actually, I literally just put out a short animation on my YouTube channel about hacking the reward-based learning system. And you're describing this to a T. So the way our brains work is, given choice A or B, we're going to choose whatever's more rewarding, right? So broccoli versus chocolate or cake or whatever, our brain says, oh, more calories. That's what our brain says. And we say, oh, looks yummy. So we eat the chocolate. But our brain is set up to make those decisions for us really quickly. And so we actually set up habits, say around chocolate or cake, where it lays down that reward value. I think of it as set and forget. So it sets the reward value and then forgets about the details, so we don't have to relearn that every day. But the thing is, the only way to change those behaviors is to bring awareness in. So if there's an old behavior that's not helpful, so for example, with our Eat Right Now app, we actually embedded a study into this where we could have people pay attention as they were eating. And what they noticed was when they start to overeat, it's not actually that rewarding when they pay attention. And that actually drops the reward value of that old behavior. Same thing for smoking. Same thing for worry, right? It's not that rewarding to worry as much as it feels like we're in control for a moment. So that reward value drops, but it opens up the space for this bigger, better offer. So things like gratitude, things like journaling. And it's really interesting. It makes complete sense that at first when you were journaling, it wasn't that rewarding because your brain's like, dude, you could be shoplifting. It'd be so exciting, right? And there's probably this surge of adrenaline and excitement, and all that stuff that comes from that. But when we see, really clearly we can compare the two, like those excited types of things are closed down and contracted, right? That's why we named our anxiety app Unwinding Anxiety, because we get all wound up with anxiety and worry. But things like gratitude or listening to music, it's great. You're playing this song and I'm just grooving along with it. I'm like, this is open. So those are bigger, better offers that are a no-brainer for our brains, because we're like, dude, of course gratitude feels better. Of course kindness feels better than being mean to each other. Of course, being curious. Curiosity is my favorite word. That I would get that if I would get that tattooed everywhere. It's like, yes. It just feels so much better than being incurious or like judgmental. And self-judgment versus kindness to ourselves. No brainer, right?
Yeah.
But we have to be able to see how that works. Oh, when I'm mean to myself, when I judge myself, it feels contracted. When I'm kind to myself, what does that feel like? So
yeah, and just to get really clear just so everybody really can follow, every thought, feeling, or action leads to one of two states, dilated or contracted. And you cannot be in two states at once. So again, a really easy hack is when you feel you go like this, you can hack your way into a dilated state by thinking of a thought, feeling, or action that leads you to dilated. And I have a list up on the website of emotions and actions that will generally dilate you. The trick is getting your entire system to do it. It can't just be a mental thing. And when you're first learning to hack your habit loops, that's hard because, as you say, compassion feels better than self-judgment. Unless you're really addicted to self-judgment, unless you really have a strong narrative around my self-worth is about how much I can criticize myself and how much it's like having a whip. I whip myself and I get behavior out of myself. Mm-hmm. You have to rewire. It's a lot of rewiring we're talking about, right? It's how you get yourself to perform. You get yourself to perform with a whip, and you're trying to learn how to get yourself to perform with a carrot. Compassion versus self-criticism. And those moments, like I remember for me when I was learning to not shoplift, and then I started attacking other ones. I started attacking ones that weren't just behavior-based, but very thought-based, like self-criticism. I called it internalizing my critic. My dad was abusive. I said that was horrible. I left home at 15 because I knew it was bad. And then I internalized my abuser. I became my own abuser. I internalized every mean, horrible thing he ever said to me, and I said them all to myself. And rewiring that was a big deal, but it felt comfortable. It felt familiar. It felt like the known. It's what I knew. It's what I knew of how to get myself to behave and get performance out of myself. I don't mean musically, but just behavior out of myself. So at first, when I started trying to learn compassion, it felt like crap. I would sit there and try and be compassionate, but it felt like my skin was crawling. I likened it, I never smoked, but I had likened that feeling to what it must feel like to quit smoking cigarettes. I imagined it's because all my neurotransmitters are used to going down this one pathway. And now that I'm starving them, they're all screaming at me to go down this pathway. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so there's actually a really interesting survival basis for this. So you think about, our ancient ancestors out on the savannah, and if they've mapped out a territory, they know whether it's safe or not safe. So there's that familiarity. They're like, oh, I know this is safe, or I know this is unsafe, so I need to be careful. When we go into new parts of the savannah, our brain is on high alert saying, I don't know. And what that's saying to us is be careful. So that familiarity, even if it's like the self-abuse or being in an abusive relationship, I have a lot of patients who are like, I can't understand why I keep going, and finding new people who are like this other person that I was with, and it's a bad relationship. It's the familiarity. It's our survival brain saying, hey, that's a familiar part of the savannah. I know that part. Even if it's not good, it's better than not knowing. That's the part that our brains hate. They don't like not knowing. So if we can get familiar with being unfamiliar, if we can get comfortable with discomfort, that's where we can start to learn, oh, can I open to this? Or, oh, is this really dangerous? I need to pay attention.
Yeah, it's such a good point. I'm writing a book right now about change. My whole life is really different. I mean, if you look at me going from a girl with an outhouse and a log cabin to homelessness to fame, all these different things seem like a lot of change. And I learned mindfulness young. I stumbled on it at a young age, and it really improved my life. But there was a much deeper level that wasn't changing. And so I spent the last 2 years really studying change and creating metrics for change. How can we quantify it? How do we know when we've changed? Because what I realized is I got the scenery to change. So I was in a car. I even got my car to change. The road never changed. So I got the scenery to change from Arctic to green to skyscrapers. But that doesn't really change. It was just the scenery. It's the curtains in the house. How do you get on a fundamentally neurologically new road? I mean, how do you create an actual paradigm shift? So that's what I was with this new book. It isn't out yet. Really looking at is that level of change. And one of the things I really saw the most is people don't want to change because they don't know what's possible. It's more comfortable to stay with what you know, just exactly what you're saying. I didn't know there was a scientific, thing behind it, except it exists, so there must be a reason. Getting people comfortable with stepping into the unfamiliar and building some muscle around that is a really important thing, because we all say we want to change. But at the end of the day, we really don't, because we kind of would prefer the misery we know, because we don't have systems for change. So what I'm really trying to do with this book is help supply people with some exercises and some systems to help ease them into an entirely new paradigm shift. Do you have any tips for people of how to get comfortable with that really frightening feeling when you're like, I want to change, but I don't know how? Because really, where do you go to school to learn this? I mean, there's really nowhere to learn it.
Yeah. I didn't even learn it in college or in psychiatry training or, in my neuroscience training.
Yeah.
There's not a lot, I haven't seen a lot of emphasis around this. So I would say two things. One is, and we've actually embedded this right in our apps. And we just finished 2 clinical studies with our unwinding anxiety app, for example. We just published a study with anxious physicians, right? So this is really appropriate right now. We got a 57% reduction in clinically validated anxiety scores when we taught them a couple of things. One was help them understand how their minds work, right? Map out these habit loops around worry and anxiety. Then see how unrewarding worry is, right? Planning helpful, worrying about every possible thing that could go wrong, probably not so helpful. Our thinking brain actually can't think when we're worried. But the third piece is bringing in these bigger, better offers around mindfulness practices. And of course, my favorite one is curiosity. And I've had people in the program who've trained themselves literally through that, it being more rewarding, that curiosity feels so much better than being in a panic attack, that they can literally, it becomes their new habit where they don't even have to say, okay, I'm going to do this now, when I'm contracted. They literally move there by themselves because their brain says, dude, why would I be contracted when I can be curious about what that contraction itself feels like? So even in those moments when we're anxious or when we're worried, we can actually hack that right there, bringing curiosity in and be like, oh, there's this sensation associated with anxiety. Oh, what does that feel like? Where do I feel it in my body and all of that stuff?
It's very true. We've really over-worshipped and idolized our mental capacity.
Totally.
And I don't think it's our greatest intelligence. It's certainly our intelligence, our brain is going to be what causes us to go extinct if we're not really careful, if we can't get more into our feeling body. Can you explain to people, so the body has its intelligence. Can you explain that to people?
Well, I would say the greatest and simplest intelligence that we have is something that we've already touched on, which is this, the reward value of closed versus open, of contracted versus expanded, because that ultimately gives us a very simple metric to say, am I moving away from happiness or toward happiness? When I'm mean to people, what does that feel like? Oh, when I'm nice to people, what does that feel like? There's a huge intelligence there. And that type of intelligence could save all of us. Just that. So that. And I really think, I don't know if you've heard this. There's this great psychological analogy around this thaw, shift, refreeze. Have you heard this?
Uh-uh.
So it's very brief, but basically you can think of a leaf frozen in a pond, right? And it's like some energy comes in and thaws that leaf out. And then that leaf has the opportunity to shift somewhere else in the pond. So think of even coronavirus as an example. We've all been stuck in like isms, right? Racism, sexism, divisiveness, else, them. We've been stuck in there forever. And now this thing has come forward and thawed that out. And by necessity, we're starting to shift and like, oh, wow, it's actually nice to connect with others. It's, who cares what our political affiliations are? We're just all here together trying to survive. So we're shifting. And that wind of kindness, the wind of connectedness, the wind of curiosity, those all blow that leaf farther and farther down the pond. So the hope is that will blow far enough through this collective awareness where we're simply seeing, oh, it is so much more rewarding to be here than here. When this thing is over, we will freeze hopefully somewhere else and never go back. Hopefully we just won't be able to go back if we all collectively raise our awareness, because it just feels so much better. It's so much more rewarding. So there's
and that's my hope with this. Everything, to be in a relationship, we have to evolve. Whether we're married, with our children, and with nature, we have to evolve.
Totally.
And we're being asked to evolve quickly and in real time. It's forcing us to evolve very quickly. And I really hope we can help influence people to use this time to evolve for the better instead of contract into pathology and our fear and anxiety. I really can see it going both ways. I can see people that go, this is a tremendous opportunity. I'm uncomfortable, but I'm going to be willing to be uncomfortable and say, what am I willing to let go of? How am I willing to change? What things weren't serving me? For everybody that's watching, I know we don't have a lot of time. I just realized what time it is. I want everybody to ask themselves, what do you want to get out of this experience? Because this experience is on you. It's happening. Nature's in control. We're not in control. But we get to control how it changes us. Mm-hmm. And so if we can ask ourselves good questions, like what do we want to get out of this experience? Is there something you always wished you could leave behind that maybe you didn't have the chance to? And then what are you going to replace that with? What is your commitment going forward? How will you change?
So the one thing I would say is, pay attention, be curious. And that curiosity will help us learn everything that we need to know without overthinking it. It's really important that we not overthink this.
Wonderful. It's so nice to have you today. I would love to have you back when we can have even more time to talk, because I feel like we have so much more to talk about.
Totally.
Really appreciate it. Thank you, Judson. And for everyone that's still watching, the kids are going to stay on here. They're going to do some meditation. There'll be music. They answer questions. The kids in our youth foundation are so well trained in mindfulness. They've become ninjas at it. So please stick around and hang out with the kids.